Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Rune Words. And if you can't tell by the aura underneath my feet, we are going to be talking about a very special rune word today. It is known as Pride. Pride is a pretty amazing rune word because it gives you a concentration aura when equipped, and it is most often used for mercenaries. That is why it is in an ethereal cryptic axe. However, this weapon does have some drawbacks, and first we're going to go over to the website and we are going to take a look at Pride and see what kind of variables Pride has and what it's good for. So let's pop over there real quick. All right, so here we are over here on the wiki, and we are going to look at the fact that it is ChamSurIoLo. So a fairly expensive rune word if you think about the fact that Sur and Lo are both highly sought after runes. Cham, while not being a highly sought after rune, is a rather rare rune. Although you will probably be able to trade for it fairly cheaply because it doesn't really have a lot of very good uses. Cham runes are used obviously in Pride. You can also use them in several other things, like for instance a cannot be frozen helmet for a mercenary. You can use 2 Cham runes and you can transmute them up to a Zod rune. You can also use them for freezes target on a weapon, which is one of the downsides of this weapon in certain situations. Now, let's go down to the effects of the item, and let's look at them together. So first off, we have level 17 Firewall Windstruck, which is kind of nice considering nowadays Firewall is pretty broken. I've definitely seen Firewall do a pretty massive amount of damage for relatively minimal skill points. So we can look at Firewall here, and it is level 17. So we have a mana cost of 38, which doesn't matter. We have 998 to 1,022 damage per second with a radius of 26 yards. And I know it says radius, but what it really means is the spread, so it goes out in a wall for 26 yards, which means it's going to be fairly effective. It's going to hit a lot of monsters within that 26-yard line. And of course, it doesn't actually spread out 26 yards in one direction or the other. It spreads out in 26 yards in total, so half in one direction and half in the other. So you're looking at a total of what, 13 yards in one direction and 13 yards in the other. So it's a fairly large range. Let me just say, fairly large range. All right, so next we have the level 16 to level 20 concentration aura when equipped, and concentration is a paladin aura. And it is a very effective paladin aura because it is the only paladin aura that has the ability to cause a chance to be uninterruptible. So basically, no matter what level concentration is, there is a 20% chance that you will be uninterruptible on your attack. And this is really amazing because there are certain attacks in the game that do have an uninterruptible ability. Smite being one of the most popular. When you attack with Smite, you cannot be interrupted. Well, this gives you a 20% chance for any of your attacks to be uninterruptible, which is very nice, and will increase your DPS significantly. I had actually considered using one of these on my Spear Amazon, which I was playing around with, because she does have an issue with being interrupted in attacks, and I feel like concentration would be a benefit to her. I'm not sure if that would be on the mercenary or myself, because I don't think I can actually use polearms with my actual abilities. It has to be a spear class, so it probably would be on the mercenary. But one way or another, I feel like concentration aura would be very effective for my particular character. And as we look here, we will see that it has a range of 16 to 20. I believe it was 16 to 20. Yes. And level 16 concentration is 285% weapon damage added as off-weapon ED. And level 20 is 345% as off-weapon ED. So a difference there of, what is that, 10, 20, 30, 40. Yeah, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. It's about 60%, right? So 44 plus 2. 60, yes. Terrible at math, but at least I got that right. We got 60% variance between the two, so if you rolled 16 instead of 20, that would definitely be a pretty large damage decrease. But it's not too huge if you land somewhere in between. I feel like somewhere in between is still fairly good. I mean, you're only 15% off of the top if you hit 19, and 30% if you hit 18, and so forth and so on. So fairly nice ability there. And obviously this concentration aura is going to affect not just you, but it's also going to affect your minions, your mercenary, whoever else is around you. Basically, everyone within the radius is going to get this damage bonus. And if you're leveling up with a Hammerden, though, his concentration aura is probably going to override this one because his is going to be a higher level. We also have a 260 to 300% bonus to attack rating, which is pretty amazing. You're not going to have any trouble hitting with this weapon. That 300% bonus to attack rating is going to be a really large boon to your to-hit chance. We also have 1 to 99% damage to demons based on character level, which is added as off-weapon ED, so it kind of stacks on top of concentration. We have adds 50 to 80 lightning to 250 to 280 lightning damage, 20% chance of deadly strike, which is very nice to have because it gives you a bonus damage of ×2. So if it does proc, you have ×2 damage, and you can stack this with other deadly strike items, as well as items that have critical strike, although they don't stack quite the way you would imagine. So basically, each rolls, so critical strike and deadly strike, both have their own rolls. So for instance, if you have a 50% chance of critical strike and a 50% chance of deadly strike, critical strike will roll first. And if critical strike fails, then deadly strike will roll second. You will not be able to get 4 times damage, but you will get 2 times damage as long as one of the 2 effects succeeds. And it does increase the probability that you will get a successful roll because having 2 50% chances is greater than 50% by itself. I believe it's 75%. So it's a 75% chance that one of the 2 abilities will succeed. Of course, it does diminish as you go lower, so if you got like 2 10% chances, it's not quite as great. We have Hit Blind's Target, which is really nice. Although keep in mind that Hit Blind's Target can override curses. So if you have like a life tap or something like that, this might be a little bit of an issue for you. But I mean, if you're spamming life tap with something like Dracul's, you're going to be constantly proccing this life tap over and over again, so it might not be that big of a deal. However, Hit Blind's Target is very nice to keep monsters from hitting you. Believe it or not, a very good blind effect is extremely useful for certain characters. We also have Freeze's Target +3, and this comes from the Cham Rune. So Freeze's Target is a very interesting ability, and it's great for certain characters, and it's not great for others. Because when you freeze a target, the target will explode in a shards of ice, and they will die, not leaving any corpse. So if you are a character who wishes to prevent monsters from leaving corpses, this is a good thing. However, if you are a character who does not want to prevent monsters from leaving corpses, this is a bad thing. And it's important to note this because the concentration aura would make you think that this is absolutely amazing for a necromancer. However, the Freeze's Target is something that is going to ruin all of the corpses for his army. He won't be able to resurrect skeletons from anything that the mercenary kills. He won't be able to corpse explode anything that the mercenary kills. And in general, Freeze's Target is going to sabotage a lot of the necromancer's forward mobility with his army and his abilities, because as each corpse disappears off the land, that's just one less corpse that he has to do his work with. Now, some necromancers still take the bullet anyway, and they use this for the concentration aura, and the concentration aura will increase the damage of your minions quite a large amount. So, keep in mind that although it does have the Freeze's Target effect, it is still useful for necromancers. It's just that you're going to have to rely on your minions to kill things more so than your mercenary to kill things, because everything that he kills is going to immediately die in shards of explosion, of ice explosion. We also have +10 vitality, which is very nice for extra life. We've got Replenish Life 8, which is always nice to have on an item. It's not something that people generally seek unless they're building a Replenish Life build, but it never hurts to have a little bit of Replenish Life. We also have extra gold for monsters based on character level, which is from 1 to 185%, which is a lot of extra gold for monsters. Now let's go back over to the game and let's take a look at this item in action, shall we? I have one on my Necromancer for dramatic effect. I'm in Nightmare difficulty just to make things a little bit easier on him because he's not the strongest character in the world. And I also want to demonstrate the fact that Freeze's target does not work on cold immune monsters. So if you take this weapon over to, for instance, a monster that is cold immune, you're going to have a very hard time with the Freeze's target effect. However, in Nightmare difficulty, there are a lot less cold immunes than in Hell. And you'll see that, that it freezes the target. It causes the target to be blinded. And when the target dies, they immediately shatter into shards of ice. Now, certain monsters can't be frozen, but do keep this in mind that when you're looking at this weapon specifically for a mercenary, that those shards of glass, essentially, or ice, or whatever you want to look at them as. I mean, it really seems more like glass when they explode into a whole bunch of little shards, right? But that will make things a little bit more difficult for people that need bodies. If you're a Horker Barbarian, for instance, Horker Barbarians definitely need bodies. So keep that in mind as well. And there's the firewall. And as you can see, it has a rather long range. And I've hit quite a few times, and it hasn't really procced that much, but a 25% chance should be fairly common. Let's see if we can get this to proc a couple more times, just for... There you go, there's one more. Now, this particular weapon, made in an ethereal, doesn't really do a massive amount of damage. And there's a big downside to this weapon, because it doesn't have any ED on it whatsoever. Comparable weapons of the same caliber and level have a much higher damage. Take, for instance, Destruction, which is 1046 top end. We have a 258 top end. We have Doom, which is a 1057 top end. Again, very, very low comparison. We also have, I believe, Infinity. I don't know if I have that on me right now. I probably don't have it on me. But keep in mind that the damage that your mark is going to be doing with this is going to be much lower than if you were putting it on other, like, Cryptic Axe made with Crescent Moon or Obedience or Infinity or Insight. It's definitely going to be a lower damage weapon. And the Freeze's target is definitely something that you've got to watch out for there. But we do have two really nice effects here. We've got the Concentration Aura, which is definitely increasing the damage. So you see we have 2,084. And then we also have the Deadly Strike, which is doubling our damage with a 20% chance, which can be built up. And if I take a look at, for instance, let's look at Destruction, and let's just see how much damage Destruction is doing. You can see it's 3,424. Versus Pride's 2,084. So almost about 1,000 more damage on the top end. And the reason for this is because of the amazing Concentration Aura. So Destruction doesn't have a Concentration Aura, and neither does Doom, although Doom has the Holy Freeze, which is nice. So keep in mind that when you're looking at this weapon, it's not going to do as much damage as some of the others, but it will be a very effective weapon to get you that Concentration Aura and to explode corpses. For instance, Neelathak comes to mind. When your mercenary is in there fighting monsters with Neelathak, as long as they're not cold immune, he will be exploding them and keeping them from turning into, corpse explosion fodder. Now, I have been looking at this weapon myself for my Necromancer, just specifically to stack it with Might. So if you were to have a Necromancer mercenary with Might Aura, and then you put this on him, he would have Might and Concentration at the same time, which would be a rather large stacking damage increase to all your minions. And then you could wield Beast yourself, and that would give you the Fanaticism Aura, which would be very effective. So imagine having all three auras running at the same time. Oh, that's Eternity. That's not Beast. Where's my Beast stats? There's my Beast. Um, you'd have Beast running, and then you would have the Concentration Aura and the Might Aura, and you would have all three running at the same time. And this would be extremely powerful to make your skeletons really hit extremely hard. And just think about that a little bit. You know, it might actually be worth the Freeze's target because, hey, you're going to get a really nice amount of damage from it. However, the Freeze's target is going to force you into a situation where you're going to need to build your army in different ways. One of the ways that I build my army is to rely on my mercenary to make the first couple kills so I can grab some skeletons. But obviously, if my mercenary is using a pride weapon, I'm not going to be able to do that. Now, I could just simply go to the Neolithak portal and summon skeletons there, but that's not always an option because the Neolithak portal is not always open unless I'm the one that created the game. So, it's interesting to look at this and be like, well, I would really like this aura, but there's this effect on there that I don't like, and it definitely does a decent amount of damage, but it's not as much as some others. So when you put this on your mercenary, I feel like you're relying less on your mercenary and more on your army. Whereas my particular necromancer right now, I am relying on him a lot to make the first kill, which is very, very useful to me, because if he can make that first kill, I can use that body to summon my skeletons and so forth and so on. So if I use this, I guess I would have to come up with a new way of doing things, and maybe that's not a bad thing. I could definitely see this being useful on quite a few characters more than just the necromancer. A barbarian, for instance, a paladin. Just simply using it on the mercenary to gain the concentration aura. It actually wouldn't be absolutely a terrible idea to have a zeal paladin that had concentration and fanaticism at the same time. That would definitely be a really nice boost in damage. And then you could also be running might, so you could be running might, concentration, and fanaticism all at the same time, which would be absolutely beautiful. And you would just have massive, massive amounts of extra physical damage. And I imagine this would also be good on a boson, a physical boson. Obviously not as great on a elemental damage boson, but still a boost to her damage as well. But I think if you were going with an elemental damage boson, you'd probably go with, eventually, when you had the money, when I say money, I mean trade value, or the runes, to make an infinity probably instead of this. Now, this recipe is really expensive with Cham, ChamSurIoLo, and Lo. Io being the most inexpensive rune in that recipe, and although Cham is a very rare rune, it is a less sought after rune, but that doesn't mean it is completely invaluable. It does have its uses, and it's definitely, a Cham is definitely worth more than an Io. I'll say that much. It's a very interesting rune word, and I think one of the problems with this rune word, though, is that it shares a Sur and a Lo rune, and with a lot of the other rune words. For instance, if I found a Lo rune, I would probably not create this first. I would probably create a Fortitude or a Grief with it. The Sur rune, if you had two of them, could be combined to a Burr, and you could make yourself an Enigma, or several other recipes. And I think that the Pride rune word just ends up coming in last as far as creation, because there are more important things that people would like to make. Now, if you were a main necromancer, maybe this would be one of your first rune words that you would make, just simply so you could beef up your army. And if that's the case, then maybe you would like to invest a Cham, a Sur, an Io, and a Lo. But at the same time, a Lo rune could go to increasing the survivability of your mercenary before you make this polearm, and Fortitude is definitely something that will help your mercenary stay alive. So keep that in mind. Well, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching these videos, and thanks for watching, and keep watching.